A week after the crash of Germanwings Flight 9525, investigators are still trying to understand why co-pilot Andreas Lupitz deliberately crashed the plane into a mountainside. Joining us now to talk more about that is psychologist and family therapist and author Dr. Linda Mintle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This case, all these days later, still has a lot of us puzzled. You've counseled a lot of people who are depressed. Have you ever seen something like this, where the person dealing with depression not only kills himself, but takes the life of 150 strangers with him?
Well, that's a great point, because I want to say, with the number of people that are struggling with depression, which is a significant number of people just watching us, that it isn't the typical course for someone who's depressed. And I've been counseling people, like you said, for 30 years. And typically the person will commit suicide themselves, or in some cases, we hear this a lot on the news, where we'll see maybe there was a breakup of a relationship, or a boss that jilted them, or they lost their job because of that. Sometimes they'll go after that person, because it's very personal, and they'll kill that person and then commit suicide. Or in the cases like we've seen with the school shooters and people who go into malls and shoot, they have some kind of a vengeance against somebody. So, and then they want to go after those people, but to take random strangers and to do that as an act of suicide is not the norm for people who are depressed.
The co-pilot thought that his health problems could end his career as a pilot, and said he would one day do something to change the whole system, and everyone will know my name and remember. And this is a quote from him. What does that tell you about his mental health?
It tells me that he was pretty angry. And of course, we're speculating at this point, but it does make a little bit of sense if he felt, because I read that he was very into flying, and that was his whole life, and he'd been doing that since he was a teenager. And this is what he thought. And if he had ripped up the doctor's orders that said he was unfit to fly that day, and he was looking at possibly the end of his career for flying, if he did have conditions that said he couldn't fly, then it is somewhat conceivable that he would have been so angry that he would have said, when I'm taking the plane down, I'm taking people with me. And he knew that that would create the very thing that is happening, is that we all do know his name. And he did take a lot of people. He did make a mark on history in a very negative way.
Indeed. Airlines all over the world are now reviewing their procedures about medical conditions and privacy. What do you think should happen when someone who is responsible for the safety of others is known to be suicidal or clinically depressed?
Yeah, this is such a difficult tightrope to balance, because you're always balancing privacy with the need to know. And I think what people are going to be struggling with and looking at right now is that when there is safety involved, and that is really the key, when other lives are at stake, should there be some type of reporting from the physician that says they cannot do this? Because it's usually based on the pilot then telling the airline that I'm not fit to fly, I can't do this. But again, when someone's in such a down state and they don't see any way out of their circumstances, and they're thinking that they're going to end their life, they're not always going to go to the people and tell them. So it's a fine balance always between our privacy and the need to know, and the airlines are going to have to struggle with that to figure out what the best solution is.
I'm already hearing some people say that doctors should have called the airline, but
then you have the privacy of the patient, and the fear is that the patient won't tell the doctor what's going on because they know it's going to get reported, and we wouldn't know anyway.
Right.
So I think the ultimate solution is to destigmatize mental health and to make sure that when you have a problem, you know that your company will work with you, because depression is treatable. And if we know the company's going to work with you, that it may not be an automatic loss of your job, then maybe people would be more forthcoming and would be willing to talk about what the real problem is.
Indeed. Great insight. Dr. Linda Mintle, thank you so much.
Thank you.